Alright. Hello everyone. Welcome. If I can somehow fix my mic and make it a little louder. Maybe. No, it's fine. Anyways, welcome to the stream. This is the week 4 overview. For the Phalanx division. We're going to be looking at the matches. Unfortunately, we only had 5 matches instead of 7. We had 5 last week too, which is a little disappointing that we had 2 forfeits. But hopefully those 5 matches were good. I unfortunately wasn't able to play this week because of a conflict with my opponent. But no hard feelings. He just wasn't available. So, I mean, I'll take the win. I wanted to do the matchup for sure. It was a Koraidon versus a Miraidon matchup, especially because he was a great team. I would have loved to do it, but we weren't able to. And the other matchup, I believe, was S&B versus maybe Bosi, but they also weren't able to play. That would have been a probably interesting matchup too. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get into the matchups we do have. Which first we can see it's just me versus Trippy. Very interesting team by Trippy. He's shown it off several times. Very RNG based, and also an interesting bring by it's just me. No Chiyu is really weird into his team, especially just because I feel like Chiyu is really good into Metagross and Dusclops. He I guess Kieran maybe. He's not like the craziest model in the world, but he's a great special attacker. Which Groudon is extremely physical. And then you also look at this team and you think like, first of all, what is Quaquaval doing here? I guess just for he does have a good matchup into Kyurem and Garganacl and Tinglu, so I guess that does make sense. But he's very frail. So he can be killed with normal moves, non-Oko moves. Additionally, you have 3 hard support mons, so you're going to guaranteed bring at least one of them. Probably you're bringing 2 hard support mons, unless you're bringing Groudon and Venusaur and Quaquaval every single matchup. You're probably bringing 2 hard support mons every round, and that's not great. You typically want to have, like 1 hard support mon that's good at what they do. And you have like other mons that can attack and with supporting moves. You have something like Indeedee Gothitelle is a pretty common pairing in just Pokemon. You have something like Indeedee with Follow Me or like Helping Hand and whatever, and he maybe gets like Dazzling Gleam or Psychic on top of it. While Gothitelle is like a support mon because of Shadow Tag, and you can have like Fake Out, which is kind of a supported move but deals damage, and Psychic, which can do damage, or Shadow Ball, and so it also is like has some damage to it. Like something like Incineroar has Flare Blitz, maybe Knockoff, which does good damage. So you don't typically want 3 like mons that only do supporting things. Like I have Grimmsnarl who can let off some pretty powerful attacks. That 120 base attack. So you want mons that can do more than just support. And Cresselia like is the only one here. Like if you have special attack investment in Cresselia, yeah, it certainly can do some damage. But people typically run like bulkier and use it as a sets and use it as like a supporting mon. And then Whimsicott and Sableye are almost entirely supporting mons. Sableye could have like Foul Play, I guess, for his attack. I don't know what else he'd run. And Whimsicott would have Moonblast, and that's kind of it. So we have a lot of support on this team, which is not great against Trippy's team because if you don't kill his Pokemon, then he can get off a lot of attacks, and that's kind of the way Trippy wins. Not that he's won yet, but that's the way his team could win. All right, Venus or Whimsicott's interesting. Tailwind is fine. It's not bad necessarily. Giga Drain does a lot of damage, which is nice. Fissure misses and then hits. Okay. One thing about Tailwind, actually, I'm realizing, his team is very slow. Venusaur could underspeed, max speed Kyurem or Kyogre, but that's it. I personally wouldn't bother with Tailwind, really, in this matchup. Unless you see, like, one of these guys out, but he's probably going for bulk and not speed anyways. So your speed control doesn't matter a ton. Probably just Moonblast into something like Team Glue, or maybe double up into Garg if you think that's better. But anything other than just collecting Tailwind, it feels like a waste of a turn. And your opponent does get lucky, so he's kind of in trouble now. Whimsicott and Groudon. I mean, Groudon does outspeed. Goes for Moonblast, but it's a little too late. And missing both Precious Blades is terrible. Thankfully, Fissure misses as well, but now that you've led Groudon, I feel like Whimsicott, first of all, would be Sunny Day, just because you're fighting a Kyogre, and you have a Venusaur who wants Sun to be up, and Groudon obviously prefers Sun to Rain. So I assume this is Sunny Day Whimsicott. If you send out Groudon, and your opponent has Kyogre in the back, you can assume that maybe a switch is coming from one of these two slots. Instead, he goes for a Moonblast, which is a little weird to do now that Tinglu is a grass type, because unless he's switching in Kyurem Black, it's going to be neutral and do almost no damage into anything. So Moonblast really is not exactly the play here. Precious Blade missing both just sucks. He would have killed Garganacl. But I expect a Sunny Day this turn at least. Yeah. And it does kill Garganacl. And Kyogre takes quite a bit of damage. Thankfully, Sheer Cold misses. That would have sucked if you wasted your Terra for no reason. I guess I could see the logic of, like, you don't want him to click Water Spout or to click Origin Pulse or something into your Groudon super effective. But Sun is up, so I don't know. I think the Terra's fine. It's just not super necessary. Precious Blade missing is really rough, and you do no damage to the Grass type. And then Sheer Cold does hit. Fissure doesn't work as a Levitate, but that's very unfortunate. If you're clicking Precious Blades in front of Tinglu and Kyogre, it's probably because you have nothing to hit Kyogre and you want to kill Kyogre, is my guess. Or your Choice Banded. That's a little rough. Moonblast does, wow, almost no damage. Then Wiki Berry is really, really rough. Psychic does almost no damage, meaning it's probably some more of a bulky Cresselia set, meaning the support is just really rough. You don't want to have that much support or hard support. You can see how 10% and 14% from these mons is really just terrible damage. And then Fissure connecting on Whimsicott is really rough too. Kyogre is just going to take a slow burn, and Cresselia is hit with Fissure. That's rough. Thankfully, you get a Rock Slide miss, but I mean, there's no way Kyogre can do any damage here. So that's game over. Or not Kyogre, Whimsicott can do any damage here. So that's game over. That was a pretty rough game from It's Just Me, just in terms of allowing your opponent to do so much damage and you do no damage back. Groudon was the only mon you had that dealt damage. I mean, Venusaur did too, but he died really early. And if you're going to have 2 support mons, by the way, or 3 support mons on your team, which none of which are Follow Me, which would be nice against this team, you have to, like, use them to enable your attackers and not just have them sit on the field doing other stuff while and then switch to doing barely any damage. I feel like that's not a great use of your support mons. So save like Venusaur. Hopefully we see a Gravity at some point just to make Groudon more accurate, because he had a lot of misses turn 1. Okay, Gravity, Sleep Powder. I like that combo because Sleep Powder's 100% accurate now. Fissure misses what you expect and you hope. Tinglu, you should honestly expect this. Okay, I would have gone into Kyogre honestly with that, but it's okay. Knockoff is actually kind of nice. You want to knock off those berries before you can use them. And then you want another Sleep Powder and a Kyogre probably. You might Protect, but still, it's probably the play. Yeah. And then Tinglu can't be slept, which is unfortunate. And Fissure hits. So that's really rough. Sorry, also I just saw Quash, but now you're in a really bad spot because unless you have Koquavel in the back, which isn't great into Terragrass Tinglu anyways, then you're in real trouble. So Quash makes no sense because you underspeed everything anyways. Groudon probably outspeeds everything. And then Heat Crash into Tinglu is really bad because Tinglu weighs a lot, and Heat Crash is entirely based off how much you weigh and how much they weigh. So it's 30 to 120 base power, I believe, maybe up to 150 base power. But either way, if you outweigh the opponent, then you do a lot more damage. Ting Lu weighs a ton, and so does Groudon, to be fair. But because Ting Lu weighs so much, you're probably looking at 30 base power. If not 30, it's close to 30 base power of an attack. It's in Sun, I'll give you that, and it's super effective, I'll give you that. But a 30 base power attack, even if it's Sun boosted and super effective, it's not stab, and it's still 30 base power. So you're really not doing a whole lot of damage there. And we do see another Cresselia bringing it back. It's the same exact two attackers there, then just no Quavel. You did ditch Whimsicott for Sableye, but it's really not doing you any good. There's too much support on this team for not a lot. You knock off and do a decent bit of damage the first knockoff, but that's kind of it. And all of a sudden, it's just game over again. He can just start slowly killing your team. Psychic, I mean, thankfully you got that special defense drop, because now Tinglu is actually able to die, but otherwise it's kind of game over. Sableye is probably just going to try and knock off Kyogre, then just slowly chip it away, but it's able to kill both now. It's going for sheer colds, which actually I think is smarter because you can't fissure Cresselia because of Levitate. So you let your Garganacl pick up the kill, and you just go for sheer cold. Garganacl probably just goes for Rock Slides. Or something adjacent. Yeah, Rock Slide does miss, but it's game over for Cresselia. You do no damage to anything. You're going to try and kill Kyogre, but it's probably going to die first, honestly. Just sheer cold's going to hit eventually, or you slowly die to Rock Slide. Maybe not. Maybe. There it is. Yeah, well. Oh, yeah, no. Sheer cold does hit eventually after several attempts. That was really good RNG on Trippy's end. That looked like almost like 50% accurate on those Oko moves, which is crazy because they're 30% accurate. But I think I remember saying this like every week. Like Trippy's team is not great, but if he just gets lucky and you don't bring the offense, you lose. And that's exactly what happened here. There was almost no offense from It's Just Me. And he got really punished for it, especially because of the bad RNG. But, I mean, even if he was 20% accurate with those moves, I don't think the results would have changed all that much. You just can't do any damage with your Groudon or Venusaur. Those are the only two mons you have doing damage, and they're really not used well. Especially Groudon getting off 130 base power Heat Crash and then dying is really, really rough. You got to bring more offense against this team. Thankfully, my team is kind of like a hyper offense team, so I was able to kind of overpower Trippy's team for the most part. But I tried setting up against him one game, and I got really punished for it. So if you can just do insane damage, then it's a pretty easy win. If you don't, you try and go for support, and you try and go for all these strategies, and try and set up, and you don't bring enough firepower, then you're going to lose. And it's actually, I'm kind of glad that Trippy did get a win. He's now 1-3 instead of 0-4. I expected him to get at least one win. I think he might get another, honestly. I could see it happening, where he just gets a little lucky and your opponent doesn't bring offense. But this is good for Trippy's next 4 opponents. This is a great learning experience of not bringing too much support. And if It's Just Me, you got to learn that your team is really revolving around your handful of attackers. Like you have Groudon, Venusaur, and Chi-Yu, and everyone else is supporting, and that's a lot of support. I think the scariest teams are ones like OK's teams, where he has Lunala as his big scary attacker, and he has like Indeedee and something else for support. He's Comfey for support as well. And Lunala can have some supporting options for sure. Don't get me wrong, but it's a big, strong attacker. Torkel's a big, strong attacker. Same with Roaring Moon and Conkeldurr. So you have a handful of really good support mons, and then everything else is just a strong attacker. Those are the really scary teams. If you have a handful of small, like strong attackers, and then everything else being support, you can't use too much support in a matchup. You can certainly have too little support, or you can certainly have too little support, but too much support is kind of a problem that it's very easy to run into if you just don't build your team with enough power. I think things like Jumpluff or Lilligant Hisui would make this team a lot scarier. Just like Jumpluff can use Sleep Powder, like anyone else, but he has Acrobatics, which can be hit really hard if you're Stab and you use your Sash or whatever item you're holding. And you have you can set up Sunny Day itself, so that's like a good example of a mon that can have some strong attacks and still do fill a supporting role. Is what I'm trying to say, and you feels like you just went hard on support, and that's something to think about as the trade deadline does end at the end of week 5. So that's maybe you adjust your team, maybe you just adjust how you use your team, but less support and more threats, because it's really easy to prep around a handful of attackers. Let's move on to TBL versus Amlodude. Amlodude looks like he's just bringing kind of a set, or the team he's been bringing several times. There's like Parastrap with Smeargle doing weird stuff, Dialga and Ho-Oh if he doesn't want to go for Parastrap, and Klefki being annoying with stuff like Thunderwave and maybe Screens. TBL going with pretty standard Pokemon too. Brute Bonnet's a little different, I guess, but a hard Trick Room team versus this team, which also has incredibly slow speeds for the most part. So it'd be interesting seeing how this plays out. I want to see if you guys know anything for Imprison Goth, because that could be a very big problem here. I think I did do live stat tracking for this game, so I have already watched it. But so Perish Song, wow, interesting. You switch in Ursaluna by switching out Necrozma. Ghost types are able to switch out with Shadow Tag, but no other Pokemon can. And so you switch out immediately before Perish Song, which is really an interesting idea. I don't know. If you see this lead, you're expecting Perish Song. Probably Protect or Imprison. Imprison makes the most sense here, just to stop Trick Room from coming up. But you should expect something along those lines. So collecting Trick Room, like, I guess, but switching your other slot is a little rough. You want to wait for Perish Song to come out so you can switch out, and then you'll be good. I get you want the burn, but that's a lot. And a double protect is what I'm expecting here, because with Perish Song, you click Perish Song 3 turns until everyone dies. You double protect the first turn, right? Then the second turn you can't, but the third turn you can also double protect. So as long as you can survive that one set of hits, then you're good. Additionally, you can also have double protect, then a switch on Streamtail, and Gothitelle just eats a hit, and then a switch on Gothitelle, and then a protect on whatever replaces Streamtail, and then these 2 guys die while both of your Pokemon are able to make it out scot-free. That's what I'm expecting. That's what like a good way of using Parastrap. But we can just see the Parastrap timer clicking down. If you can't beat a standard Parastrap team, then that's unfortunate. Wow, this could be really bad. Let's see what happens here. He goes for Facade into the Screamtail slot. That's interesting. And you're just kind of accepting a death on both these Pokemon. I expect a switch. No switch, no. Interesting. You just go for some damage. I don't really get that exactly. I would probably want to preserve Gothitelle if you can, so you can go. I guess because he only has 2 Pokemon left, the Shadow Tag doesn't matter as much, but you can keep imprisoning. Anyways, Moongeist Beam and Trick Room does come out, but it probably doesn't matter a ton because Perish Song is up. So it's just game over pretty much. Meteor Beam comes out into the Protect is really rough because now you can't use it again. You have a special attack boost, but you can probably just click Moongeist Beam. Oh, you go for Meteor Beam. Interesting. I mean, I guess you were Encore, but yeah, you just lose pretty easily. You are able to preserve that last slot, and that's game. Wow, that was a pretty rough loss. Just kind of no real prep into Perish Trap, I guess. The Ghost on Necrozma is the only way you could switch out, but he wasn't able to do anything there. You have Skeletor you can switch out. I think I saw that we had Terra Ghost on Ursaluna and P2, but neither were used. So, also I did make a little mistake of just telling him that he has to be Terra Ghost first. I thought he knew that or figured that out. I shouldn't have said anything, but I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory that you have to be a ghost type to switch out. You can't be a normal type to switch out. So if you click Terra and then switch out, like, you can't do both. You have to Terra first, so you are a ghost type, and then you can switch out. I still shouldn't have said anything. But yeah, that was pretty rough. Game 1. We'll see how TBL adapts to the Perish Trap Game 2. Gets spored immediately, which is really rough. And then imprisoned. Please no Trick Room here. Okay. Ice Beam? Is he not? Does he not have Terra Blast? Or? Huh. Interesting. I mean, you could click Terra Ghost Terra Blast, or you could just click normal Terra Blast and it would be stronger than Ice Beam. I don't really get the Ice Beam. Maybe it's not even stronger to anyone. His team Terra Blast is always better, unless you're talking like Clef Gear. Dialga. Unless you're expecting that switch, which you can click Imprison turn 1 last game. You expect it again. But, alright. And then Perish Trap comes out on him, and then Foul Play, which does a lot of damage to Necrozma. Wow. The Ice Beam freezes. Maybe that's what he was going for this whole time, just Ice Beam freeze. And then Gothitelle is Lumberry. Probably for Brute Bonnet Spores is my guess. But that's a little rough. And Smeargle gets a speed boost, which, I mean, you already outspeed almost everything, so it's a matter of time. Maybe a Spore into Pori2. Yeah. Necrozma wakes up, thankfully, but he attacks into a Protect, so that's rough. Now Smeargle can Protect here or switch. They can very easily double switch on the last turn of Perish. A switch before... I guess because they're both ghost types, you're not actually trapping anything. So it makes sense to switch Goth so you can preserve it for when you have things like Ursaluna, or unless you have Skeletors in the back, then everything else you can trap on the field with Gothitelle. So that's probably what he's going for, is to just be able to do that. Another Spore because you outspeed. You outsped anyways, because I think he's main speed. But, wow, 3 times speed Smeargle. Smeargle should definitely switch out here. Also, if that had been a Spore into P2, which it should not have been. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, he should not have expected a switch on P2 exactly. That's kind of a bold play. But that would have been great, because then Ursaluna's asleep and doesn't get the Guts boost right away. But another switch, and Porygon 2 has only burned 1 turn of sleep, and Headlong Rush just Okos. Okay, so the switch from Smeargle into Dialga, I mean, because actually, I think the switch into Ho-Oh was fine, but if you hadn't done that this turn, it would have been great, because you could have had Smeargle and Gothitelle on the field, and your opponent now your TBL has to guess which one is going to be Dialga, because, you know, if you're double switching, one of them is going to be Dialga, but if you guess wrong, it does 0 damage. So realistically, he's going for Facade, which is going to at least do some damage into Dialga, and will still do quite a bit into Ho-Oh. But if he gets wrong, it's a resisted attack. So you're really at a if you have both these guys on the field, and this is the situation, like if this were Gothitelle, the double switch is really, really hard to read. Maybe you go for Headlong, but there's absolutely no guarantee of who he switches. So I think Facade is honestly the better play if this is Gothitelle Smeargle. But now that it's Ho-Oh, Headlong Rush is a better play because you could Facade, right? But then if it's Dialga, it's a resisted attack. If you use Headlong, then it's either super effective in an Oko or probably still an Oko because it's stab versus with burn, guts boosted into Gothitelle at 65%. It's probably just an Oko on either. So now you have a very clear play, unless he wants to sack his Smeargle, which he almost definitely doesn't because he doesn't have Smeargle or Screamtail in the back. I mean, maybe he ditches Dialga for Screamtail. Like game one, he didn't do that. Maybe he does. I don't think he would do that. Especially against a team with 2 Terra Ghosts and 2 Ghost types. I feel like he can't only rely on Perish Trap in this matchup. So Headlong makes a lot of sense here. I think that was the correct play given the situation. Amlo could have set this up better, but yeah. And then a switch is good. You want to switch that slot so he doesn't die, obviously. And into P2 is nice because if he brings out Gothitelle, then this slot can switch again. Ursaluna can't, obviously, but that's okay. So you pick up the kill. I'm expecting a Goth, yeah. If it is Smeargle, you can go for another Perish song, and maybe you switch out Ho-Oh into Goth. But like it's hard. Sacred Fire does a lot, but Ursaluna is alive. Oh, never mind. Foul play, the double up kills, and PT probably just sleeps another turn. Now it's Necro, 2 sleeping Pokemon. 1 slept 2, 1 slept 1. So you maybe get a wake up on 1 here. Versus these 2, you can probably get off some damage. Necrozma might just die though to a foul play. Wow. So he lives the Sacred Fire, goes for Meteor Beam, picks up the Oko, and then probably... No, it goes from the prison. He doesn't even go for a foul play. I was expecting probably a Sacred Fire or whatever into this slot, and then a foul play into the Necrozma, because you probably assume that Sacred Fire doesn't kill. But this is actually a much better spot for TBL now. It's a 2v3 and you have 3 ghost types left, which is really good for you. I mean, it's bad because you have a foul play on the other team, but it's great because you can't be Perish Trapped with these guys. And Perish Song kills him at this point. So if he clicks Perish Song, you're able to switch and you win. You also have him on the back, so like he can't really click Perish Song here. He's probably just gonna go for Spore into like Skeletors and like a foul play into Necrozma or something along those lines. Switch here. Whoa, sorry. Is he just assuming that this is like Scarf Smeargle? Because I don't think we've shown it anything. Turn 1, Necrozma did get outsped by Smeargle. I don't know if... I think it's just not a fast Necrozma. Because we already saw that it gets outsped. So a switch here does actually make sense, because if you're expecting a Spore into the Lunala slot, which I would honestly expect a foul play, so I don't think you really need this. Especially, I guess you're trying to preserve Necrozma, because he can do a lot of damage, but I think you just let him die, honestly. He's switching to PTO, it's fine. The Spore, wow, he does go for a Spore into that slot, just so Goth can pick up the kill, probably. I expect a double. No. Never mind. I guess I'm just either misinterpreting this position, or I don't know, but I feel like you want to make the priority of like you kill Necrozma, you sleep the partner, and then it's a sleeping P2 and a sleeping Skeleturge versus one of these 2 guys at least. If it's Smeargle, maybe you're a little more concerned because let's say you don't have an attacking move, But yeah, it's interesting. Minus speed on Smeargle is actually really good for QBL. Foul play, and Torchon picks up the kill, so now it is really just Goth versus the world, which is not a great spot to be in, especially when you do that much with, or that little with foul play. And yep, you die to those ghost types. So that is game. Have we seen Terra Blast from PT? We've only seen Ice Beam as an attack. I would expect Terra Blast, especially against Screamtail and Gothitail. If you're Terra Ghost, you want Terra Blast just to hit these guys. But we'll see game 3 how this turns out. Necrozma Photograph, and Goth is led, obviously, and Ho-Oh. He's probably going for, or expecting a Meteor Beam into Ho-Oh. I would probably just target the Goth with, like, Moongeist. I think that's smarter than you kill it before it can imprison. Yeah, that should be an Oko. Wow. And now Trick Room comes up. Oh, no, Helping Hand, sorry. He can't use Trick Room. But now Trick Room can come up. Photograph might just get spored here. Yeah, he does. The switch into Brute Bonnet does not make a whole lot of sense. Maybe you were expecting a spore into Necrozma, but I feel like you're trying to prioritize stopping Trick Room. So if you're Imladude, so you're going for the spore into the Trick Room setter. I think that was a misread by TBL, honestly. And now you outspeed everything with Spherical. Like you already did. Oh, never mind. You don't. But Photograph is just going to eat another turn of sleep, probably. Unless it wakes up and can click Trick Room. Ho-Oh is probably just going to try and kill Brute Bonnet before it can move. Or you switch into Ursuluna. That's interesting. Now you still only have one turn of sleep on Photograph. You might have wanted to just eat that second turn of sleep just to get a better chance of waking up. Or to, like, hope that you get a one turn sleep for Trick Room. But I get wanting the burn. The thing is, you get burned from Sacred Fire anyways. I don't know. And you want to, that's fine, I guess. Sacred Fire into Ursa takes a lot of damage, and Ice Beam kills it with a crit. Wow. So Ursa does just, as a sitting duck, dies there. I think switching into Ursa in this spot, without Trick Room up, with kind of no help, I feel like he's bound to just get doubled up. Maybe he doesn't die, but he's gonna get doubled up for sure, or like he's gonna take a lot of damage. Necrozma is not nearly as threatening as Ursaluna, just because he can eat a headlong and die immediately, and Facade does a lot into this neutrally. Trick Room does come up, thankfully, but this is, maybe you switch into Photograph if you were planning on using Trick Room, but you want Ursaluna in Trick Room, and now you don't have that. So if Smeargle has Parasong, which, spoiler, we know he does, then this should be game over if you can get him in safely. Also, this is the first time Trick Room came up, apparently, which is hilarious, because he's a hard Trick Room. 2L's a hard Trick Room team. Meteor Beam does do a lot of damage, but it gets that special attack boost, which is nice. And then a crit to kill. Crit, I think, we already saw it take like 41% from a attack, and so now it took 53, so that crit definitely does matter, which is rough. And then a lot of damage on the Photograph, who just pretty much switched in. He does almost no damage, and then yeah, Life Dew really seals the deal. And holy stat pad for Dialga. I mean, it's really not a big deal. I get it. And with the Life Deal, you just guarantee that you can't die. But wow, that last game felt like there were so many ways you could have won. Like this, after this first turn, like you see this where you have Helping Hand and you just kill Goth instantly. I mean, you take 35% from Sacred Fire, that's nothing. But Goth just dies. That's really good. And then you kind of throw it all away with this turn of switching to Brute Bonnet and nothing with Photograph, so you just die. I mean, I guess you could run Safety Goggles on Photograph if you don't want it to sleep. You could also just run Sap Sipper. I believe Sap Sipper works into Spore because it's a grass type move, but Spore really just did a number on this team. I mean, there's just a lot of sleeping this game and the last two. Like, Yeah, I think that's a good call by Wah in the chat talking about the no prep into Spore. I think just easy adjustment is by Sap Sipper onto Free because you have Klefki, right, who is a prankster mon and could be a problem, but how much of a problem will it be? Like you have your two big attackers on this team are Necrozma and Ursaluna. And Ursaluna is a ground type who can't be Thunderwaved. So maybe he goes for screens, but he can do screens either way, whether or not you have Frigoraph with Armor Tail. Um, so maybe you're doing it to protect Necrozma from T-Wave, but you're a Trick Room team, so like you only caring about the 25% chance to not move, not about the speed thing. So it feels like kind of over prep for one Pokemon that actually was never brought. I think Sap Sipper is makes more sense just because he could have grass type attacks. Probably not, but Ursaluna is weak to grass, so maybe he has like Terra Grass, Terra Blast on something, right? But mainly for Spore. I think Spore is definitely commands a lot more respect than Thunderwave, especially if you're a Trick Room team. If you're like a hyper offense team where like one full para could screw up your entire game plan, or where one of your mons being slower could mess up everything, maybe it makes sense to, you know, prioritize that. But most of the time, Spore is the big problem. If you have an opponent with Spore, like we saw that, I don't know if it's Terras where, yeah, he had two Terra Grasses, just probably almost entirely for Brute Bonnet and Ursaluna. Ursaluna for the ground type attacks, but I think Spore was a big reason because he doesn't want Trick Room Spores to come up. Um, so Spore is one of the best moves in the game, commands a lot of respect, and you prioritized Thunderwave over Spore, and I think that's a mistake. Especially because again, you're already slow. Thunderwave, the only thing it does to you really is gives you 25% chance to not move, which sucks. I mean, I'll give you that, but with Spore, you have a 100% chance to not move for one turn, and then I think it's a 33 or 50% chance to wake up every other turn. But yeah, um, that's unfortunate for TBL. It felt like you had after game one, it felt like you were very weak to Perish Trap. Game two felt like you're not weak to it at all, and game three you started really strong, and then you made him abandon Perish Trap. I mean, he didn't even bring Screamtail. He had Smeargle, but that's kind of it. He went for Spore instead. Um, and you felt like you were in a good spot after turn one, but you kind of messed up a little there. It's a little unfortunate, but still can't beat yourself up too much. Anyways, moving on to Screwbite versus Eternum. Screwbite with the Zacian and Eternum with the Zamazenta. It's pretty funny. Zacian versus Zamazenta matchup. Also, a Rain team versus like a Size Spam team is interesting. I want to see what Drifloon is here for. I think Tailwind makes a lot of sense because your opponent probably is bringing Tailwind on Iron Regulus. Dragonite could also be going for it, but it likes E-speeding. Drifloon also probably outspeeds everything if it has Psychic Seed, which probably would. And then Zamazenta is also going to be very big here because you have three Mons that are weak to Body Press. We have Meowscarada, Incineroar, and Arcaludon. And also importantly, you like Psy Spam, and you have three Dark types on this team, and Zamazenta hits two of them very hard. And the other one is Iron Regulus, who dies to Chenpao. Chenpao also does good damage to these two guys. But you don't want to be clicking or committing too hard to this Psy Spam strategy. We'll see how it plays out. What he goes up for. Oh my god, what is this? Ah, probably just messed up bringing the wrong team. That's fine. I've done that before. And it is Psychic Seed, so it outspeeds everything. I'm expecting maybe a like Dark type attacks into here. This was Indeedee, so maybe just like knock off into both, and then a Tailwind or something like that. Yeah, Tailwind, a taunt into what was Indeedee. That kind of makes sense. And then a knockoff. Yeah, that's knockoff actually does not do nearly as much damage because it is a Drifloon who with Unburden, so it's already used its item, but still you do a lot of damage because your stab move super effective. And minimize comes out, which is interesting. I haven't seen minimize strats much, but we'll see if that pays off or not. Body press takes it down to sash, which makes sense. Forward chop picks up the kill actually. So it hits through the minimize, which is, good if you're screw bite. If you're turning, you feel a little upset that you clicked minimize because it didn't do anything. But you can't be upset really. It's just RNG. And then parting shot into Zamazenta makes a lot of sense, honestly. Flare Blitz would make a lot of sense too. But let's say you expect to switch into Dragonite, or you switch of any kind, really. This punishes the switch, and even if he doesn't switch, Zamazenta, anything other than Body Press is now worse. So if you switch into something that, like, I guess he doesn't have anything that resists Body Press on his team, which is really bad for Screwbite. But if you have something that can do a lot of damage, then it's able to do more damage. Kind of balance that out a little. I'm maybe expecting a Tailwind here to try and match up, but you could also eat a really strong attack from Chen Pao here. Or Chen Pao just picks up the kill on Meowscarada, that's fine. And then Body Press picks up the Oko, which is huge for Eternum. Because now, it's a 3v2. You already know Incineroar is coming out. He can't click Fake Out because of Psychic Terrain. Even if he has Fake Out. We might not have even brought it, who knows. You get attack drop on both of these guys, but Zamazenta is very clearly clicking Body Press. I believe this is Terra Ghost on Zacian, yeah. So you're able to maybe use that to live like one attack. Hard to see, but you're probably just prioritizing killing Incin with the Zamazenta slot, so it's a 1v3. We'll see. Position to Indeedee is fine. Iron Defense comes out just to bulk up, but Zacian, this is actually, I was about to mention this. Zacian does have a Sacred Sword, and Sacred Sword ignores your opponent's stat changes. So the Zamazenta, which outspeeds everything because of Tailwind, that could have easily gone for a really strong attack into either one of these guys, decides to bulk up against a Mon that outspeeds it with Tailwind having one turn left. So my only concern with clicking Iron Defense is that it's probably not going to do anything. You click Iron Defense, and the next turn you get outspeed and you die. That's probably what's just going to happen. If you would click Body Press, you get off a lot of damage, maybe probably Noko into Incineroar, honestly, and then a lot of damage on Zacian. Just click attacking either one of those guys. And then we already know Sacred Sword on Chen Pao, so you could probably guarantee a kill on Incin, or just do like a Body Press into Zacian and then a lot of damage into Incin, if not a kill with Sacred Sword. Plus, you outspeed both. That's helpful. But instead, you go for Iron Defense. Sacred Sword does 58%, and then Will-O-Wisp into the wrong slot because he switched out. But still, if you're Zamazenta, you probably just die to Zacian here. Yep. And then probably just a knockoff. Does a lot of damage here. Oko, wow. Okay. Of course, Male Indeedee is not super bulky, and it's a stab, super effective attack, but still, it's a lot of damage. Speaking of a lot of damage, holy moly, Sacred Sword did a lot of damage. I would have 100% expected a Behemoth Blade, though. You know that you're obviously not choiced, and you're crown form, so you can click another move if you want, and that, sorry, I could have looked here, but Chen Pao is a Terra type that is neutral to steel and fighting, so there's no advantage of predicting that. Maybe you assume that Sacred Sword will Oko and Behemoth Blade won't Oko, but if he Terras, then you just guarantee the Oko. I don't, it's fine. It just means if you were outsped, this would be game over. Thankfully, you do outspeed with Zacian, but a Terra Blast picks up a kill on Incin. This is probably a differential play, just because if you kill Zacian, then you just die to knock off, almost guaranteed. So, and maybe you don't want to reveal your item on Chen Pao, so I guess this makes sense, just killing the Zacian, or killing the Incin with Terra Blast, but there is a Zacian that outspeeds you, so it is a loss. But let's move on to game 2. So this is a very different lead for both. If we look at the first turn here, we have Indeedee and Driftbloom versus these two dark types. So both very scared of that. A tournament definitely adapts here because Zamazenta is good into dark types pretty clearly, and Dragonite resists Zacian's. Sorry, what was I trying to say? Never mind. He's not weak to dark, is what I was trying to say. And he has Tailwind still. So this is a pretty good adjustment by a tournament in my books. The only thing is that Screwbite does adjust as well. He swaps his Meowscarada for Zacian because he's expecting probably not a double psychic or a psychic ghost lead off rip. And when you have Zacian and Zamazenta staring each other down, Iron Defense would make sense here. Terra Fairy Terra Poison Zamazenta could potentially be a problem if you are Zacian. You kind of don't know exactly what to go for. You might just kind of go for like a Willow and Dragonite and maybe a double up into Dragonite, or like a knockoff to try to scope the item, and then a Sacred Sword, even if it could be bad, or I don't know. Maybe a Flare Blitz because it's guaranteed neutral. Protect on that. Oh wow, a Play Rough is interesting. I probably wouldn't have gone for Play Rough there, because Zamazenta is clearly more of the threat. A Coaching is very interesting. I think if you have Zamazenta on the field, if you're gonna be clicking a status move, it's 9 times out of 10 gonna be Iron Defense, and I don't think Dragonite survives a double up, even if it's +1 defense, like a Play Rough and a knockoff. I don't know. But interesting play there, and you just eat a burn. Wow, that's not good. That was also a great play by Screwbite, clicking Will-O-Wisp into Zamazenta instead of Dragonite. Dragonite's very easy to want to burn because burning into Dragonite is just insanely good. Like, Dragonite just dies instantly. You can't do anything. He's burned. But if you're in tournament, you're kind of in a bad spot already. I mean, you have a coachinged up Dragonite, but your Zamazenta's burned, and you haven't really accomplished anything. So you go Terra Normal, which probably to live the Play Rough, but hopefully you lived it anyways with this +1 defense. I think Terra Normal only makes sense if you're going for E-Speed into Incineroar, I guess, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Body Press and Instant does a lot of damage. He has a Citrus Berry, unfortunately. And a Low Kick on Dragonite. Wow, if you're going for Low Kick, I mean, I get prioritizing Zacian. I think that makes a lot of sense. Doubling up Instant would be nice because you outspeed with both. So you'd be able to kill it before it moves, unless he switches. But as I've said before, everything in this game is at least neutral to fighting. So Low Kick would probably do a lot. Maybe a double up didn't kill with Citrus Berry. I could see that happening. But a Terra Normal doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially if you're targeting this Zacian spot. Maybe you think Zacian's going to outspeed and OHKO you, which could be the case. I don't know. If that is the case, it makes sense. But otherwise, the Terra Normal leaves you susceptible to future Sacred Swords, and the other burn is really good. So Screwbite's in a good spot now. Also prepare for Gen 10's a funny name because Dragonite, the Mega got leaked, or not leaked, but revealed. Also, the Terra Ghost is probably just for a body press / Low Kick, so you can guaranteed to survive the turn, and then you go for a Sacred Sword for a lot of damage. You're kind of ignoring Dragonite because you just burned him. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you want to try and ignore it. And he gets up Tailwind, but the body press does come out in the Zacian. That's really good if you're Screwbite because your Incineroar is able to live to see another day. He probably can't do as much, but he can probably go for a Parting Shot this turn or a knockoff. Yeah, that works too. And the Silk Scarf is removed, so any Terra Normal Silk Scarf E-speeds now do a lot less damage, which is nice, I guess. Probably didn't affect that damage roll, but Zamazenta goes for another coaching before it dies. I don't. Wow. Sorry. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, honestly. I think if you're Dragonite, you're in the unfortunate spot of not being able to do almost anything here. You are +1/+1. Maybe you switch, even still. Probably you just hope you die so you can get a free switch. But Zamazenta going coaching makes no sense. You just go for body press and kill Ensign, or maybe Behemoth. No, you don't go for Behemoth Bash. That does no damage because you're burned at -1 attack. So you probably go for body press into Ensign. Maybe if you want to double up an Ensign, you can, but you almost definitely okay. We already saw a body press into Ensign earlier, do 67%. So you know you okay. So probably switch Dragonite or, you know, waste an attack, I guess. But coaching it is not the play for sure. And it does just die to a Sacred Sword because the defense boosts are ignored. So that is really tragic if you return him. And then Zamazenta was you expect him to die soon anyways. But this probably just seals Eternatus' fate. It is a 2v4. Thankfully, Zacian is a ghost type and you have a super strong dark type. So probably you outspeed both with both. Mewtwo goes for like an attack and an instant, and Chien-Pao goes for attack. Makes sense. Crunch, yeah, makes a lot of sense. And Earth Power comes out. So it is exactly that, and that does make a whole lot of sense. Tailwind does last one more turn, thankfully. So you outspeed, and you can't protect again. You probably should expect a switch here, or go for a double protect. I probably expect to switch on Zacian, and so maybe like an ice move into Yogulus. But that being said, a double into Zacian does kind of make sense. The switch does come out. Crunch still. Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. And Ice Beam comes out, and there you really want that to Oko. You really want that to Oko because he's going for Dark Pulse, not Tailwind. I think Tailwind makes more sense there, honestly. But either way, you don't want Jugulus to live that turn to get off whatever he's gonna do. So that's why I think Chien-Pao with Icicle Crash would almost definitely Oko that. So you should prioritize killing the Yugulus real quick, and Earth Power actually would have been great here. But just attacking into the switch to get off some good damage. You got half of that right, but I feel like you should have just swapped who you attacked with. Snarl is really good into that Mewtwo to get some chip while you prioritize killing the Chien-Pao, but Chien-Pao does obviously outspeed you and picks up the kill. And then Mewtwo picks up the kill on Yugulus. So now it is Zacian versus these two guys. But because of that Snarl, Mewtwo's really not doing a whole lot of damage because he only has neutral attacks. Maybe he has Dark Pulse, which I think probably does. Hard to say what he would be running over as his fourth coverage move. Maybe he's running Protect. But if he's running Dark Pulse, that's still not doing that much damage because it's not Stab. You have your Stab, like Psy Strike, but that's still not doing a ton of damage because you're -1. So if you just focus on killing Chien-Pao here, it's just game over. Chien-Pao's probably protecting, yeah. But even still, wow, that's a great read by Screwbite. A Crunch, actually, this is the best play. Sorry, I'm wrong. Crunch does not Oko Zacian. If it does, then it's a bad play, but I don't think it does. And because Crunch doesn't Oko, you outspeed, so you always attack into Mewtwo here, because Mewtwo's not clicking Protect, but Chien-Pao might, and he clearly does here. But before this turn, if you're in this situation, okay, so Chien-Pao might Protect, Mewtwo almost definitely not protecting. He's gonna try and go for some damage, because if you go for Protect Chien-Pao or if you go for Protect on Mewtwo, then Zacian targets Chien-Pao, is game over, right? But if you go for Protect on Chien-Pao and he attacks into Chien-Pao and you get some damage off of Mewtwo, then maybe you have a chance. That's your only thought process. So this actually is the right play by Screwbite, I believe. And then Mewtwo goes down, and then Chien-Pao just goes down to Sacred Sword. And Zacian, wow, putting in so much work in this matchup. I mean, Terra Ghost was huge, because the only real threat to it was Chien-Pao here. But being immune to body press is huge. You just completely invalidated this Dragonite set. Snarl made Mewtwo really weak, even though he already probably wasn't doing a ton of damage. So Terra Ghost was pretty good prep. I mean, it's not like a crazy prep or anything, but it's still, definitely the right call. I think Screwbot played great here, honestly. If you're a Turnum, you feel like, you tried to make some adjustments, you played pretty well throughout, and you still lost like a pretty, like, even though he did have only Zacian left both times, Zacian was in these situations like, this is a guaranteed win for Screwbite. If you look here, this is a guaranteed win for Screwbite. So even though they don't necessarily look like it, it's just very, very well played. I think Terragostation put in so much work. Even without that Terra Ghost, he was just really a monster. If you're a Turnum, I think the big takeaways here are considering Terras. So you used Terra Ground, Terra Blast at the end of game 1, which didn't actually do really anything for you. And you used he used Terra Normal Dragonite, which didn't really do anything. So you kind of didn't have your Terras didn't really do anything for you, and your opponent's Terra really screwed you over. I don't think he clicked Terra game 1, but game 2 it did. So just being more conscious of Terras, and thinking about your opponent's big attackers. When we were talking about the It's Just Me battle, that's exactly what Trippy did. He thought about who are the big attackers here, and Groudon is by far the biggest, and then Venusaur is also kind of a big attacker. So he probably just ran max defense on everything, and he ran like leftovers and Wiki Berry and Citrus Berry and stuff like that. So he went for like pretty strong physical bulk to counter that one big attacker. If you're Screwbite's team, you have Zacian as your big attacker. I mean, you also have, don't get me wrong, Arcaludon's very strong, and Meowscarada is very strong, and Incineroar to an extent. But these guys are doing a lot of damage, especially these two, into your psychic types. Things like Arcaludon and Arnegulus are very scary, right? But they're not as scary, and you have to kind of be set up, right? Because if you have Chenpao versus Arnegulus, Arnegulus just dies most of the time. Arcaludon needs Rain to kind of be set up. So Zacian is kind of the biggest threat on this team, and Terra Ground, Terra Blast is a nice innovation, but bringing a Mon that's just so utterly weak to this one Terra combo is rough. I had a matchup where against, I think it was against OK. If he had run Terra Grass Conkeldurr, that posed a lot of problems for my team. So I had to plan around that, and it feels like over prep sometimes, of like over prepping for Terra Ghost. Zacian is obviously not great, but if you think about like, okay, if I have like a dark type, if I run Dark Pulse on Mewtwo and I have Chenpao with Crunch, and then let's say Drifloon has Shadow Ball, that's more than enough prep into it. I think that's plenty. Having multiple options. So just thinking, you don't want to focus all your effort on it, but you want to think about it for sure. So those are just my takeaways if I were to turn them. Let's move on to Voids versus Nick here. Very interesting team by Nick. He made some huge changes. He used all of his free agency to switch up his team, and this is his first week with this new team. So, very interesting versus a pretty strong and scary Calyrex team with Iron Hands and Ogre Pawn to boot. And then you have Scrafty and Goldengo, who are pretty scary in their own right. Hatterene and Trick Room as well. So right away we see Air Balloon on Tinkaton and Terra Steel from Ray. Terra Steel kind of makes sense if you expect a Glacial Lance, which you can't not expect it, I guess. Trick Room is probably more common, but if it's Follow Me Glacial Lance, then you're in trouble. So I guess Terra Steel does make kind of sense, but high horsepower is also on Calyrex, so it's not great. Okay, so the Terra Steel is probably because you're going for a Dragon Dance and assuming that he's not clicking Trick Room. If he clicks Trick Room, you can fake him out. He's probably not Covert Cloak. He's almost guaranteed not to be Covert Cloak. So you fake him out if he goes for Trick Room and you get a free Dragon Dance off. Or you, if he goes for, well, if you're going for Fake Out anyways, and he's not Terra Ghost, which he wouldn't be, like, Calyrex can probably always get hit with Fake Out, then Terra doesn't make sense there. I guess maybe you didn't want to eat a Ogerpon Cornerstone attack. I get that. You were just scared of these two strong guys, and that's very reasonable. But you get a free Dragon Dance up, and that's a great. He wastes. He plays way too passive. Turn 1 ND Dance comes up for free, and you're in a great spot now if you are Nick. Follow Me does come out with Terra Electric, but EQ comes out, and that's huge. I think if you're Voids, you do have to respect Earthquake on Ray, not only because it's a really strong move, it's pretty common on Ray. Fake Out, Tinkaton does have Air Balloon, so why would he have Air Balloon? If you look at everybody on this team, right, nobody has any ground type moves pretty much, besides like Earth Power Trapagos, I guess. But the only one who could possibly have Earthquake is Rayquaza, the only Pokemon. Maybe you don't want to get hit with high horsepower, but usually Air Balloon is not just to avoid a ground type attack. It's usually also to pair with a partner Earthquake. And maybe you don't know that Rayquaza runs Earthquake a lot, but it does. So Terra Electric there is maybe it's also just because you're expecting a Terra Steel like Terra Blast or Iron Head or whatever, or a Gigaton Hammer or something. But you did click Follow Me, so I think just click Follow Me and don't Terra, and that's good. Then high horsepower the Ray. That makes the most sense here. We see a EQ and kill, and then Trick Room comes up. Trick Room, sorry. That makes more sense than high horsepower, honestly. So that's a fine play. There is a Protect on Rayquaza and a Fake Out, which actually is a good thing. I think this is the right play. Maybe you double up into Tinkaton just because Rayquaza is fast now, but we already know he's EQ, so targeting it makes a lot of sense. A Protect from Cali feels weird here. It's probably just so you can get off a free Earthquake, but it's not kill, and if it's another Earthquake, it's actually good for you. It is another Earthquake. You trade this, but that's not a bad. Maybe that is bad for you because Iron Hands is really good, especially with Drain Punch into these two steel types, especially the Terra Steel. But Entrap goes in the back. But now you get a free switch into Hatterene, who's extremely strong. You can probably get off a nice attack into Terrapagos. Or Life Dew. That's fine, I guess. And then you attack into Protect again, which is really rough. But the Life Dew helps you live in Earth Power. So, unfortunately, this Calyrex always seems to be in the wrong spot. First it wasted kind of a Terra Electric into an Earthquake, which is not great. You attack into Protect, then you click Protect when you really weren't getting targeted. You were getting hit with Earthquake, but that's it. I think that Protect was kind of makes sense. We stall a turn of Trick Room, and then you attack into Protect again. So this is just kind of an unfortunate spot to be in if you're Calyrex. You feel like you haven't been doing a whole lot. And also, honestly, I think if you're not going to be attacking with Hatterene, you kind of have to go for Glacial Lance to break that Terra Shell. So here he tries to go for the double. You go for D-Gleam to break the Terra Shell, and then Glacial Lance probably makes more sense than high horsepower here. Because even though it's resisted, your Calyrex, you're insanely strong. You probably get that kill if he's at 15%. Let's be real here. I think Glacial Lance makes more sense, but then you just go down to goes anyways. So it is a 2v1, and you are out of Trick Room, so it's probably, yeah, it's just game over. Sludge Wave is really good here. You reveal Weakness Policy, which is not a great thing to reveal at this spot of the game where you've already lost. And then Trapagos finishes you off. So if you're Voids, you definitely gotta adapt this next game. That was really well played by Nick, though he played very smart. I think the protects on Rayquaza both made sense. I think the Earthquake, when you have your Tinkaton and his Iron Hand's actually a winning trade for you, so I'm fine clicking that trade personally, especially when you have no one you can really switch into in the back. That's fine. Um, I think Nick played very well, and we'll see how Voids adapts game 2. Wow, very different lead. Goldango and Iron Hands. Goldango obviously can't be fake outed, so that's probably part of the thought process, but Earthquake can still happen. So maybe a fake out into Ray as like a nasty plot would make a lot of sense here, because Ray might protect, and then in which case you get a free nasty plot, or you get fake outed. So we reveal it is Covert Cloak Iron Hands. He goes for fake out into Ray, and a nasty plot would be great here, but Reflect instead, actually. Reflect is good here. I'm a little curious as to why Goldango is running screens. Encore, you just forgot about Goldango's good as gold. For Nick, that's not great. Earthquake comes out and does still a decent bit of damage, but not nearly as much because of Reflect, and Shadow Ball does nothing. Wow. And then another Earthquake only hits your partner. Maybe you forgot about Air Balloon. Maybe you expected a Terra Steel. But otherwise, I don't see why you'd click Earthquake here. You literally just attack your partner. Clear of Mist is great if you're Voids. And then another Earthquake does a lot of damage. And it's now very low on both. And then a Recover on Goldango is interesting. I think going for a bulk on Goldango works in Reg H. In Reg I, there's too many scary Pokemon. You can't really make Goldango your bulky mon. Like things like Annihilate and Goldango and Arcaludon, those were all really scary Pokemon in Reg H, and all three of those Pokemon could easily be the best Pokemon on their team because they were super bulky, super strong, good abilities. They were just all really, really big problems, commanded a lot of respect. Now, with restricted Pokemon around, they don't hit nearly as hard as the restricted Pokemon, and they're not nearly as bulky as the restricted Pokemon. So, if you try and keep them in their same niche, they're not going to be nearly as good. Annihilate has moves kind of regressed back to Final Gambit Annihilate pretty much, which is unfortunate because it was a really good Pokemon. But if we're being real here, Annihilate can't do nearly as much. It can't be like the Mon you beat up and then have it sweep. It's too frail at this point. Arcaludon has switched from Stamina to running Sturdy a lot of the time and just using Power Herb, which it was using before back in Reg H a little, but not nearly as much. And Goldango has just kind of seen a big fall off in usage. Same with the other two, but you're trying to keep using it the same way, which, to be fair, he's not. He's going for screens, but trying to use it as a bulky mon is not necessarily the play here, in my opinion. Rock Slide comes out and does actually a good bit of damage and breaks the air balloons. That is a pretty good play. The Protect here, I don't know, makes a whole lot of sense, but I guess you want it to live. So I guess it's fine if you're going for like a light screen or maybe another Recover or a nasty plot, like maybe so you do more damage, but nope. Just another decent attack in Tinkaton, and then don't go for EQ here. He doesn't. Perfect. Dragon Ascent, though, is not the play. It's resisted pretty clearly. And then you died your own life orb. Okay, that was not a great play by Nick. But you're still in a winning spot because you have Tinkaton who outspeeds both. You get a free Gigaton into Cali unless he Terras. So basically you're forcing a Terra. Terapagos can go for EQ into Goldango to probably kill it, or into Cali if you expect to Terra. But I'm expecting maybe a Protect on Cali or Terra Trick Room. It's really up to you if you want to try and read that or not. Either way, though, you're not in a great spot if you're Voids. I feel like Nick has a lot of options here. And what will it be? A switch. Okay, interesting. Surprised you can get a fake out later. And it is Terra with Terra Electric with Trick Room probably. Yep. And Light Screen comes out, which means it's full screens. High horsepower does make a lot of sense. You double up and kill it. That's pretty good for you. Terra Starstorm doesn't do a ton. So now you can click Glacial Lance to break that screen, and then Make It Rain does a lot into Terapagos. Or you Protect, which is weird. I know you fake out, sorry. It does make a lot of sense. You go for a Cover on Goldango, which is good, and that Protect was really good, and you get a free bunch of health back. But unfortunately, I did just realize that Goldango can't hit Terapagos. So Calyrex is your only way of hitting Terapagos. So you want to. I don't even know what you do. He's just sitting here. If you're Nick, you just hard target Calyrex. That's all you do. You go for Earth Power this turn for sure. And you probably kill. Yep. Terapagos takes no damage there. Earth Power doesn't kill, but it doesn't take a whole lot. Terapagos is in a good spot still. Light Screen will be ending soon. Goldengo can't do anything at all. So Terapagos is now 1. Against the... Oh, he could have switched this whole time. He should have definitely switched. I forgot that he had 1 in the back. He should have definitely switched. And Hatterene comes out way too little too late. And not a switch. Wow. I think in this spot where you have Calyrex, even if you're +1 attack, you have Goldengo who's not doing anything. So you want to try and, preserve your Calyrex if you can and go for Trick Room. But instead, you don't go for either. Sorry, whoa, I did not mean to skip to the first turn, sorry. This is just not a great play. You take some damage here, and Reflect comes out for no reason, just because Goldengo can't do anything. And now if you die, which you do because of a high roll, then that's game over. So, really, it was up to... Wait, was light? It's not a high roll. It's Light Screen wore off. That's really unfortunate for Voids. If you had lived that, you could have maybe won the game then and there. But instead, you have a Goldengo who can't do anything, and this is just going to be GG's. Wow, you really get punished for running Screens Goldengo there. Or running 3 status moves. If you had Make It Rain, that would have been a win. And that's a 2-0 from Nick. Nick played pretty well, honestly. I think that game 1 especially, but Voids just did not prioritize Calyrex. And when you have Calyrex on your team, it has to be the centerpiece. I mean, no matter what your team is, you can't make Goldengo with screens and who can't even do any damage to the Terapagos more valuable than Calyrex. I don't think that makes any sense. Because you know that Hatterene lives. So Hatterene's able to get up another Trick Room for free, and you switch into Goldengo. And so even if it attacks into Hatterene and you make the play wrong, then you still win. Because you get Trick Room up, and then Calyrex can come in and kill. But no, it hurts a little. All right, moving on to our final set, we have OK versus Charcoal. I'm going to watch from Charcoal's perspective because I'm Charcoal's friend, and because OK scares me. So yeah, let's witness a little bit of that fear ourselves. Sandy Shocks and Torkoal. Wow. First of all, the fact he's bringing Sandy Shocks is saying something because he didn't bring Sandy Shocks versus me, and I have Miraidon. So that's interesting. I think it's probably just because it pairs well into Tornadus and Raging Bolt. And NTI, I guess. But it's bad at a Great Tusk. So that's having 1 bad matchup and 3 good matchups against 3 really scary mons is nice. Or 2 really scary mons at least. Is nice. Torkoal does especially power up that Photosynthesis. Especially for speed, this is great here. It is. So now you outspeed Calyrex. That's really good. And you switch out, you just want a Torkoal for Sun. And Thunder Wave means Calyrex is now, wow. Not only is he significantly slower, he does get full parried, which is really, really bad for him. And then a Thunderbolt crit is great. If you're Charcoal, probably just click Snarl, because if Torkoal stays in, then he's weaker now. So just probably click Snarl, but that's fine, I guess. Volt switching to Cali doesn't do a whole lot, actually, but Cali is able to go for an Astral Barrage and break that Shadow Shield and do a lot of damage, and Snarl is 100% the play here. Snarl, you pick up a double kill, but you go for Thunderbolt. Maybe you're expecting a switch, but no matter who he switches in, unless it's Conkeldurr, which would be, again, out of Trick Room, then you gotta click Snarl. Snarl's the play for sure. Terra Fairy, you probably just want to live this Torkoal. Which, actually, I don't really get the Terra Fairy here. Maybe for Draining Kiss, but you get full parried. Snarl is the correct play. So far, it's just been click Snarl and you win. And And now we see a Sandy Shock's outspeed. Probably go for Earth Power. Yep. And does 57%. This has got to be AV Snarl, Raging Bolt. E-Force does a lot of damage, and Snarl picks up the double, or he goes for Draco for some reason. Snarl is just the best play there. So basically, just click Snarl and you win if you're Charcoal. But he doesn't do that. The switch there into Ditto actually works really well because he's able to get a 4-0, which he would have gotten even if he stayed in, but that's just funny. So, wow, that was a good game by Charcoal. I think just click Snarl every turn with Raging Bolt, and that's literally the best play every turn. I mean, if we watch this on hyper fast, right? Best turn here, just click Snarl, because then he's weaker, and Indeedee/Torkoal takes a special attack drop, and is super effective on Indeedee. So Snarl's the best play here. This turn, especially with that switch, but even if without it, Snarl's the best play. You pick up a kill on Indeedee. Either break Shadow Shield, and then or pick up the kill since you're using Astral Barrage, or you just weaken Sandy Shocks, and then you go for Thunderbolt instead. Snarl's for sure the play here to weaken Torkoal and kill Lunala, and that's what happens. And then Snarl's for sure the play here to weaken both, and you go for Draco instead, which is weird, and then use whatever, but might as well click Snarl, honestly. Also, Calyrex would have lived that. Would have lived the Volt Switch. We already saw that back turn 2. He took 32%, so he would have lived, but I guess you just want to show off. I guess that's fine. Also, never mind. I was going to say you could maybe look at his moveset, but if you're killing him this turn, you don't get to see the moveset. You only get to see the moveset if you start the turn as transformed, obviously. But that was still pretty well played by Charcoal. Let's see. This game 2. Calyrex and Torn. So we just saw how good AV Snarl was against this team, and you decide, you know what, AV Snarl's good and all, but let me just not bring it. Okay, let me bring the Mon with Prankster Tailwind against the Trick Room team. That's interesting. I mean, I don't know how he stops just Trick Room from coming up. Oh my god, he stops Trick Room by clicking Tailwind. Okay, I don't know what bro is doing. Dark Pulse into Indeedee, I mean, it's fine. Meteor Beam picks up the Oko, and then Trick Room comes up. Yep. Ditto with Room Service is actually nice, so you can follow me, I guess. Or not. Or not. And you kill Indeedee, and then Indeedee goes for Psychic, I guess? Oh, reverses the Trick Room. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Now you have Comfey, who can set up Trick Rooms. Probably Astral Barrage to get break Shadow Shield. And maybe either Trick Room on Ditto, just because you know you probably won't be able to Oko Comfey. Or you double up with Psychic, and then you are able to. Or click Follow Me for some reason. If you have E-Force, then you could definitely kill. Wait a minute. I forgot about E-Force. You could definitely kill Comfey with a double up. Instead, you try and preserve Calyrex, but Trick Room comes up anyways, so it... I don't think that makes any sense. You make a hard... make a hard switch into Great Tusk, who watches his Calyrex die anyways. You copy the stat boost, which is nice, but you've already used your Room Service, so now you're the same speed, and you speed die. Draining Kiss doesn't do anything, because say Terrain, and you lose the speed tie, which is really rough. Not that you would have OK'd anyways, but now you Headlong, which does nothing because of Shadow Shield. Knockoff would have been nice there, but it's okay. You die anyways. So that's an unfortunate loss for Charcoal. I don't know what he's thinking with Prankster Tailwind turn 1. I mean, why Tailwind against a hard Trick Room team? Especially that hard Trick Room lead. He better not do the same thing again, or else we have tragedy. Okay, just the exact same lead. And we see a correction here. We see a Raging Bolt lead. Please just click like Dark Pulse or Astral Barrage. Probably just maybe probably Dark Pulse Snarl. Makes the most sense here, but I don't know. Nasty Plot. I don't really get Nasty Plot, but okay. Meteor Beam comes out, puts him not so sash, but very low. And the Snarl misses, which is really rough. But Snarl's the correct play, and Trick Room comes out. I would have sacked the Cali, honestly. I don't think Cali's doing a whole lot here. You go for Draco instead of Snarl. I think Snarl's the play to make Lunala back to neutral, but okay. And now you probably just lose Great Tusk. Yeah, you just sacked Great Tusk there. Alright, I guess. Ditto comes out. That's definitely better than Calyrex, so probably best amount you can have here, because now you can do some damage to Lunala to break his Shadow Shield, I guess. And and Torkoal takes half. Eruption does nothing. That's actually pretty good if you're Charcoal. And then you get the Snarl too. Both drops. Moongeist Beam is actually not bad because Raging Bolt's still alive. But you wasted Draco there. If you'd just been clicking Snarl, like this is another situation where just clicking Snarl every turn is honestly your best play. And you're probably gonna lose in 4 or 5 turns. Yeah, losing in 4 turns. Because you died by Moonblast. You kill Torkoal for the differential, but it doesn't matter. Oh, you live because you're AV, I forgot. But now you're -5 special attack, so. And yeah, there's just no way you do any damage. You probably just click that for the fun of it because it's game over, so. Wow. Wow. The missing the first Snarl was pretty rough, but just the gameplay. I mean, like, come on, man. You can't try and prioritize. This is kind of funny because I was talking about how in the Calyrex matchup, he needed to prioritize Calyrex. And now in this matchup, you didn't need to prioritize Calyrex. If Trick Room is up and you have a 222 speed Pokemon, why are you preserving him with Trick Room? Like, don't sack a full HP Mon just to get this guy to live. Like, it's not really worth it. Just eat the death, and then you can do something with the partner. I don't know. I don't get the sacking Great Tusk there, but it's game 2 was really just like the kicker. I mean, like, how many times have we rewatched this? Tailwind, Dark Pulse, Meteor Beam, Okos, and gives a special attack boost, and then Trick Room comes out. I mean, you're in a terrible spot. You've wasted your Terra, you've lost a Mon, you've dealt half health to one of his Pokemon, which isn't Lunala. Lunala got a special attack boost, and Trick Room got up. Like, this is like one of the worst turn ones. I don't think turn 1 could have gone a whole lot worse unless he was Terra Normal Lunala and you clicked Astral Barrage, or you clicked Draining Kiss into your own Tornadus. Spoiler, it would have had the same effect. So that's pretty rough if you're Charcoal. And yeah, let's move on from this because I don't want to think about it too much. It's a little sad to watch my friend get smoked like that. Also, good call by Wah. Talking about non-prankster taunt from Torn. I think that was a definite possibility because Tornadus outspeeds everything anyways. Unless it's Sandy Shocks with photosynthesis, but I would say non-prankster is helping you more often than prankster is. Anyways, let's move on to Fields of Punishment and Elysium. Fields of Punishment, Charcoal's maybe a contender. He won game 1 pretty dominantly, so I feel like it's really hard to consider him for Fields of Punishment. Legitimately. Voids is definitely punishment for running that Goldengo without Make It Rain. If you're gonna run Goldengo, it's gotta Make It Rain. I mean, I get that it's bad into that guy and that guy and that guy. I mean, is it bad into Mungus? Maybe. I don't think so. I think it's just bad into. I think it's on an Iron Moth and I guess Terra Steel Ray. But how do you run Goldengo without Make It Rain? And how do you run Shadow Ball as your only attacking move into its Rapid Ghost? That makes no sense to me. Also not prioritizing Calyrex. Just felt like you played right into Nick's hand. Nick also played a fantastic game 1, so that's kind of not entirely your fault. I don't want to consider and turn him too well or too strongly because he did actually play decently. It's just he got outplay pretty hard, but he still played pretty well. I mean, I don't want to discredit that fact. TBL had a really rough game one of just dying, having nothing, no way around Parastrap, which he showed he clearly did have a way around after game two. But then game three, we just saw like misplay after misplay. Honestly, like, besides turn one went well, and then you just kind of messed up with the switching and didn't do that much damage. Also, I would agree with Wah in the chat of Recover not doing too much in doubles unless you're having like a really bulky Pokemon or setup Mon. And he was just going for screens. And once he clicked screens, he had nothing to do. And you'll notice that a lot with Klefki or things adjacent to Klefki. I think it's kind of like you can call it like the Indeedee problem. Like you click follow me or get Trick Room up or whatever, and then what do? Like you can click helping hand every turn. I guess you can go for psychics or weak damage that doesn't do. He's just like 30% or whatever. But pretty much you want to die. Like you want to click follow me until you die, and then you get a free switch. With Goldengo, you want to get screens up and then die. You don't want to run recover on that thing because you want him to die fairly soon after clicking the screens, or you get off make it rain that's pretty strong, and then that make it rain is able to or is going to lower your special attack, and then once your special attack is lowered, then dying matters even less or whatever. But you don't want a Mon that is completely useless past a few attacks to stick around for too. You don't want to help him stick around, if that makes sense. You want him to survive those 2 turns for sure. So you get you get both screens up, but past that, you kind of want him to die or to be able to do something or switch or whatever. Sorry about that. And then we also, I think it's just me as a really, really strong contender for Fields of Punishment, just because he brought 3 hard support Mons, and watching these Mons try and attack, like, if you watch this, look how much damage he does. 11%. He dies, but then he does. Whoops. 14%. Wiki Bear is eaten. Then 10%. Like, I mean, he was doing no damage on some of these attacks. 12%. That's 12%. I mean, like, he's really just had no offense going besides these 2 guys, which he didn't even protect. So, if you're going to have only a handful of like strong attackers, you got to have either redirection or like good support. And I feel like you do have some solid support options. I think Cresselia and Whimsicott and Sableye are all individually very strong, but you don't need all 3 on the same team, and you definitely don't need all 3 in the same matchup. So I think it's just a problem of prep, honestly. It's a kind of fundamental problem here of like, you were never going to win this matchup just because even if he had terrible RNG, you just don't have the offense. Like if you watch these first turns when you're at the peak of your offense, you get Sleep Powder, right? That's support here. 13%. What do you have against Terragrass Stinglow? Nothing. I mean, you have Groudon, which we saw in Sun. He's clicking Heat Crash, which does 20%. That's all he has against Terragrass Stinglow. That's all he has. So he just has no offense. I think in game 1 it looked like he had offense for a little, just when he clicked this turn of clicking Giga Drain, but he just brought the wrong Mons into this team. It's just me, I think it's important to learn who to bring, right? You don't want to bring too much support. You want to have multiple scary threats, and to know your opponent. If your opponent is going for bulk and staying power, if you're not dealing damage to him, or you're not crippling him or whatever. Like, Thunder Wave could make sense, like, yes, like on Sableye, but otherwise, just hit him hard and then kill him and then you win. If you're not doing that and you don't have enough ways to do damage or almost any damage, then you're just not even prepping in the right. Like, you're prepping into like a completely different opponent. You didn't bring Shi against this team. If you had brought Shi, it's a completely different ball game. You have a complete, like, an immediate answer to Terragrass Ting Lu, which he's brought every week, I think, or most weeks. You have an immediate answer to Metagross Dusclops, which he didn't lead, but he would have definitely not led. Like, Heat Crash on Groudon was terrible, just because you weren't thinking. I guess if you thought like, oh, that's my answer to Ting Lu, like, you just weren't thinking it through. So just being more thoughtful in your prep is important. I don't think you're a bad player. You're just not, like, considering all the options. I think that's important to do. You consider, what do I have in my toolbox? Do I need to bring these 3 support mons, or can I get the job done with just 2 or just 1? And I think just allowing your opponent to go for as many moves as they can is not the play. This week's Fields of Punishment will be, it's just me for kind of bad prep and for lack of foresight. You gotta think through the matchup. We were talking earlier about Eternum not considering Terraghostization. That's a much more niche thing to consider. I mean, you probably should consider any individual thing that is a problem for your team. So, like, Terraghostization should have been considered because he's actually really good into your team here. You have it kind of shuts down all of your fighting offense. If you have Terra Blast, it's good into these 2 guys. He's already pretty good into this whole team, so he's a real problem. You should consider him, but that's much more niche than, like, considering this entire team. I mean, Terragrass Ting Lu doesn't feel very niche to me, doesn't feel like too unexpected, but you should be able to look at your opponent's team and see the threats or see how they win. And if you can shut down how they win, then that's how you win. And it didn't feel like you identified that. You actually did the opposite. You saw how the way he wins is by not bringing enough attack, and you didn't bring enough attack. So that's why you will be the Fields of Punishment this week. I hope that you can kind of turn things around with your team, because I still think it's a pretty solid team, and you have a lot of room to improve your team. You just got to use Chi-Yu, and you got to use all of your offense that you have, which you do have a decent bit of offense. You're just not using it. Now for Elysium. I don't want to say Trippy for sure. He just kind of got lucky, and his opponent didn't, kind of played it right into his hand. Ammo actually did play pretty well game 1, but it was just very standard Parastrap. Game 2, he lost in a pretty rough fashion. In game 3, I think he only won because of misplays by his opponent. And I don't want to discredit his win, obviously. I think he played well, for sure. But there were a lot of situations where TBL could have put himself in a much more favorable position, if not like a winning position. I do think Screwbite played very well, honestly. I think Eternum played really well, but if you watch, like, this play of, like, you kind of expect something similar to this. A taunt indeed makes a lot of sense, if not just a knockoff or whatever. But you do a lot of damage into Drifblim, and you keep yourself as a dark type, meaning your Throat Chop does more damage when you go for it. You go down to Sash, but you have the forethought to bring Sash. Parting Shot. I mean, like, there's a lot of good play here, where, I mean, that's unfortunate, but, like, the Terraghostization worked very well for you. The Sacred Sword into the Iron Defense is great. And the Will-O-Wisp doesn't do a lot here, but it actually does a lot in the next matchup. So I think that I want to, so I kind of jogged my memory with this. Yeah, he burned, very kind of thoughtful of like trying to burn. He used protect at the right time for sure. Um, to kind of scout out what Dragonite's gonna do. Eternum also did make some interesting plays here, but the Terra Ghost was great. You really kind of dominated in a lot of ways, despite Eternum only making a handful of misplays. I mean, Eternum played pretty decent throughout, and you still won in a pretty dominant fashion, it felt like, or you set yourself up in very winning or unlosable situations. And last week, the only reason I gave myself Elysium was because of that same thing. Like, if you look at this situation and you look at this situation, completely unlosable, and you set yourself up in this situation, and that's hard to do. And you made a lot of plays where like, no matter what my opponent does, this is the best play, or I'm winning. And there's not a. It's hard to do that. There's there are so many possible moves, especially in doubles in VGC, like so many possible things that your opponent could do. And despite all of the options, no matter what he does, you're in a winning spot. And you made that several times throughout this set. So I want to give it to Screwbite. I I mean, I do think that Nick did play an extremely good game one. Game two was also pretty good, but he did make a handful of plays where I was just a little like confused of like, okay, maybe that's I don't really see the thought process there, or even if I do, I don't think it's the correct thought process. And I think that okay, like I think Charcoal 100% doesn't get it because of that at least just because of that tailwind of the Trick Room, which is just forgetting about Trick Room entirely. And if you're okay, I wouldn't really give it to you either because you kind of allowed yourself to be outplayed, especially game one, and then these other turns, other games, you let him get off an insane amount of damage, and you only, or part of the reason why you won is because your opponent played poorly. So it's mainly between Nick and Screwbite, but I'm going to give it to Screwbite this week. I think Screwbite showed a lot of potential. I think the Zacian was great, especially. Not just because he's extremely strong, but the way you used him. You used him completely to his fullest. It felt like Gen 8 Zacian. And then I think your usage of Incineroar, like these are two really good Pokemon. Yeah. But just because you have two really good Pokemon doesn't mean you can use them well. Like, I had a Grimmsnarl one game where Grimmsnarl's a great Pokemon. I just didn't use him well, and he sucked. If you have a good Pokemon that is doing the wrong things, or you're not using him correctly, then he's a bad Pokemon. And you're making these great Pokemon even greater. I think also the Taunt Meowscarada makes a lot of sense, even though it didn't work in that one specific matchup, it was still good. And then just a lot of like the Snarl made a lot of sense. Will-O-Wisps, prioritizing that was really good to those physical attackers. And then Sacred Sword as well. Just really great prep and play from Screwbite. Also, having the option of Politoed Arch was really nice. Because it scares your opponent. I mean, I would be scared of Archalon. You have to think about it. It's a problem. You have Zamazenta to deal with it, and he brought Lokic probably partially to deal with that, and the other guys weak to it. But if you have Archalon, he's good into Dragonite. He's good into Drifblim. He can do neutral damage into a lot of these guys. He could be a problem. So I could see like just having these guys in the back makes rain, especially with Iron Regulus, it makes rain a real possibility, even if you don't bring it. So I think just really good prep. And the gameplay was even better. So congrats to Screwbite for reaching Elysium. Also to answer Waz's question of would I ever give Elysium to a team that lost, I don't think it's very easy to lose and get Elysium. You have to play like insanely good. But the problem is Elysium is marking like great play, and if you play great or play perfectly, and you lose, like that doesn't happen most of the time. Like I get that you could have a matchup where like let's say my team is significantly better than another person's team. Like I have a great matchup into them, and I'm going to win pretty much no matter what. And then my opponent not only takes a set from me, but they like get me down to like a completely like luck based loss or something like that, or like I win in like a dumb way or something like that, where my opponent plays incredible throughout and is able to take this absurdly bad matchup and make it like feel like a winning matchup for them. Um, I feel like something like that could elicit Elysium, um, especially if like whoever has the good matchup is playing well as well, um, or like if you're the underdog. I guess I could see it happening, but it just takes a lot. 99% of the time, it's gonna go to a winning team. Just because 99% of the time, if you play really well, you're going to win. Or if you play perfectly, or you make all the right reads or whatever, you're gonna win. It's just because you're. It's just really hard. It's easier said than done, like making all the right reads every time. But if you do that, then you're more likely to win. So it's mainly based off quality of play. It's not like if we look at Trippy, he 2-0'd. It's just me and Screwbite also 2-0'd Eternum. And Nick also. Wait, did he? Yeah, he did. And Nick also 2-0'd. And so like theoretically on paper, even if like Screwbite took 3 deaths, it took 6 deaths total, right? Nick only took 5 deaths total. That's technically better. So it's not just about the stats. I think it's kind of a gut thing, or like what my opinion. It's completely opinion based, but yeah. Anyways, congrats to both of those people, and let's move on to the standings. So, unfortunately, I mean, I wasn't able to play my matchup. Fortunately, I'm number 1 now because of that. If I had won 2-0, which I don't really think there's a chance I would have won 2-0. Maybe I win, but I don't think it's 2-0 against Cromp. I do have a +7 set differential now because of that forfeit, which is nice for me. And then Amlo Dude kind of earned his 4-0. I didn't earn it as much as him. He did win all 4 matches. But having 2 4-0 teams is unexpected. I'm happy to be one of them, or I'm glad to be one of them. But he has a +13 mon differential. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't able to have my mon differential affected at all because I didn't play. But +13 mon differential is great. I think Amla Dude definitely deserves some credit. Also going 4-0 is no easy feat. Charcoal and OK are now both 3-1 after OK beat Charcoal, and they're both amazing teams. But OK does have the tiebreaker now against Charcoal, so we could see this coming into play if we and once we make it to playoffs. If Amlo and I are still 1-2, and OK and Charcoal are still 3-4, and they have the same set differential, then OK has the leg up on Charcoal now, so that could be big. Additionally, if I fall, or OK rises, I guess, too, and we are tied, I have the leg up on OK. And another big thing to consider is the fact that Charcoal and I are actually playing this week. So if Charcoal wins, then he is 4-1 and I'm 4-1, and I will have a match. I could still technically have a higher differential than him, but he would have the leg up against me. So that's something to consider as well. If we see these 5-2-2 teams actually are all kind of in this gunning for the middle spots. Nick and Screwbite with positive set differentials, Void with the neutral one, and Cromp and SNB with negative ones. And Cromp, unfortunately, he's now fallen to 2-2. As you can see, he has a +8 mon differential. If he had played me, his mon differential would have, if I won, it would have gone down a little. But if he had won, it would have gone up from there, probably. And I think he's better than 8th place. So we'll see if he rises back up. But I think these 5 teams look like pretty all solid contenders for these bottom 4 spots at least. I could see Nick or Screwbite, after both of their amazing performances, honestly rising up to be real like top playoff contenders, but definitely securing themselves in playoffs for sure. Bosi unfortunately has had to forfeit the last 2 weeks just because he's had a lot of personal stuff going on. Um, Unfortunate. Wish him the best, and I think he said he was finishing up uni. But wish him the best. Hopefully, he's able to come back for these next 2 weeks. Maybe make a chance for playoffs. Trippy and It's Just Me now both with one win after Trippy beat It's Just Me, and TBL and Eternum unfortunately taking losses. Eternum only winning once week 1. TBL getting their win last week, not this week. But all of these guys are still actual playoff contenders. Trippy only really if he gets lucky. It's Just Me could just make a handful of adjustments to be a contender. SMB's already kind of up there because he's 2-2, and TBL is a very scary team, especially with Ursaluna. So I could see him making a comeback as well. I think all of these spots are still undecided. I could see myself slipping out of these top 3, especially if I lose to Charcoal. I could see myself slipping down to like something more like 3rd, 4th, maybe even 5th, or like that kind of the bottom playoff spots here. If I fall 5th through 8th, then I'm not able, or even 4th, then I'm not able to choose my playoff opponent. Same with Amplitude. If one of us takes a loss at any point, that is pretty rough for our standings, because it means we're kind of in the ballpark with everyone else instead of kind of being a tier above. Same thing with Charcoal. Okay, if they lose another game, then they're back down with like the 3 and 2 people. Assuming some of these guys win, which they will. Then they're kind of back in the running for like, do I make playoffs instead of like well into playoffs, if not fighting for the top few spots. So still a lot of room to maneuver, and the season's only halfway over. Theoretically, Amlo and I could go 4-4, and Bosi could go in 4-4. So there's still a lot of room for like these comebacks. And while that probably won't happen, I could realistically see one of these kind of top few teams falling into the bottom playoffs, or one of these teams kind of rising towards the top, maybe choosing their opponents. So that's it's an interesting situation we're in, but only time will tell. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I want to quickly recap MVP, and we can look at how OK and Charcoal have the kind of the top 2 guys. You can see Charcoal have a handful of guys up here. I do have 2, but that was because I wasn't able to play, so these guys could be higher, honestly. OK has Conqueror and Lunala, and Conqueror is impressive considering he's been brought to every matchup, but only used a handful of times. Amplitude also putting a lot of work with Dialga, kind of stat padding, but it's not. I mean, if you're good, then that's not really stat padding. And then I also want to say, I also want to, sorry, I'll shout out the fact that Parastrap is working so well. He has 7-0 on Screamtail, which is very impressive. And another kind of shout out to Screwbite and Eternum. Eternum with kind of 2 very scary mons, and Screwbite using Zacian so well this week. So definitely did deserve that Elysium. And yeah, without further ado, that was kind of the week. Thank you for watching. I think we're going to still have some great matchups. Hopefully Charcoal and I can deliver a great matchup this upcoming week. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. And make sure to tune by to the Hoplite stream, which will be soon. I don't know when that'll be, but yeah. See you guys.